All right, welcome everyone. Today we're diving deep into the world of sport touring, specifically the 2024 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT.
Ooh, yeah, this one's got people talking.
Definitely. And we've got a fresh review article just out, January 15th, 2025. So latest intel right here.
Very cool.
Yeah. And this bike's getting a lot of attention, right? Because it seems to be trying to do it all that exciting performance, but also comfortable enough for those long hauls.
It's really interesting, right? Trying to hit that sweet spot, riders who want to, take it on twisty roads, but then also comfortably ride across like a whole continent.
Yeah, not having to choose.
Exactly.
So let's break this down. The review, first of all, they rave about this 890cc three-cylinder engine. Now,
Ah.
anyone familiar with Yamaha, this is the CP3 engine, which is known for its smooth power, but also like it's got that very distinct triple cylinder sound.
Oh, yeah.
It's put out 115 horsepower, 69 pound-feet of torque.
That's plenty. I mean, you think about it. That means it's comfortable just cruising along at low RPMs, but then when you want it, you hit a back road, you've got that power right there. Overtaking on the highway, no problem.
Yeah, so it's got the muscle. But one of the things that really struck me reading this review was just how much technology is packed into this bike.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to start with, there's this KYB electronically controlled suspension.
Right.
Is this as big of a deal as the reviewers are saying?
Oh, it absolutely is. Imagine this, right? You're riding along, you hit a rough patch of road.
Yeah.
Now, traditional bike, you'd have to like stop, adjust your suspension. This system adapts in real time. It's constantly smoothing out those bumps and keeping you stable, even at high speeds.
So it's like the bike's thinking for you.
It's pretty incredible, yeah. Like having a mechanic constantly fine-tuning your ride.
Wow. Okay, and then on top of that, you've got these IMU-based rider aids. These sound incredibly advanced.
Yeah, so the IMU, that's the inertial measurement unit. Think of it like the brain of the bike. So it's got all these sensors. They're constantly monitoring like your lean angle, the bike's movements, and then that data, it's used to adjust the ABS, the traction control, basically gives you this extra level of safety and control. So even if you're pushing it a little bit, the bike's working to keep you upright.
It's like a safety net.
Kind of, yeah. It's amazing how far this technology has come.
And then, if that wasn't enough, you can even tailor the bike's performance with these customizable ride modes. So it's like having multiple bikes in one.
Right.
Do you think that could ever be overwhelming for some riders, all that customization?
That's a good point. For experienced riders, they love being able to like fine-tune everything.
Right.
But for someone new to this kind of tech, it might be a little bit daunting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Yamaha handles that learning curve.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk touring specifically. The 5-gallon fuel tank, that's obviously a big plus, means fewer fuel stops, you can cover more miles.
Mm.
But what really stood out to me were all these design features aimed at rider comfort. So like the adjustable handlebars, the windscreen, things like that.
Oh, for sure. Yamaha's definitely prioritized comfort for those long hauls. You got to think you're spending hours in the saddles, so being able to adjust those things, it makes a huge difference.
It can make or break a trip.
Absolutely.
All this talk about touring is making me want to hit the open road.
Me too.
But one of the things that's interesting is how this bike stacks up against its competitors. The review draws some comparisons, particularly with the Kawasaki Versys 1000.
Yeah, the Versys is a good bike, no doubt. Powerful engine. But it's heavier, and it doesn't have all those fancy electronics that the Tracer's got.
So you really feel that weight difference, especially in the corners.
You do. The Yamaha just feels so much more nimble and agile, which, makes it more fun, especially on those winding roads.
So even though it's a touring-focused bike, it's still got that sporty feel.
They've really tried to strike that balance.
Right. But there's no such thing as a perfect bike, right?
Right.
The review does point out some potential drawbacks.
Of course, of course. I mean, they praise all the tech, the lightweight design, the powerful but efficient engine, all those touring features, but they also acknowledge that it's got a higher price point than some of the other bikes out there.
Right.
And, the off-road capability is limited, so if you're thinking of going off the beaten path, this might not be the best choice. And as we said, all those electronics might be a bit much for some riders.
Yeah, a lot to consider.
Hmm.
So it's a compelling machine, this 2024 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. We've talked about the specs, the tech, the touring features, how it compares to the competition. What are your initial thoughts?
It seems like Yamaha's gone all out to find that balance between performance, technology, and touring comfort. It's a really interesting option for riders who want it all.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that electronically controlled suspension. I want to dive into that a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about some other cool aspects of this bike in the next part of our deep dive. So we've covered a lot already, but the review kind of digs a little deeper into some aspects of the Tracer 9 GT, and I think there's some really interesting stuff there. What stood out to you?
One thing that really strikes me is how Yamaha's really thinking about those long distance riders, and it's not just like slapping on a bigger fuel tank. They've really thought about comfort, even down to the
We're
ergonomics.
talking about that touring-ready design the review keeps mentioning.
Yeah, exactly. So like the adjustable handlebars, the windscreen, that's great, but they've gone further. The review talks about the seat design, like how it's specifically engineered for long-haul comfort. And then you've got things like cruise control, which, on a long highway ride can be a lifesaver. It shows that they're serious about making this a bike you can ride all day and not feel beat up at the end of it.
Yeah, no more aches and pains. Well, hopefully.
Right. But do you think, could it be too comfortable? Like for those riders who really want that kind of raw, connected riding experience?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, some riders, they like to feel every bump in the road, right? Be more physically engaged with the bike. But I think the beauty of this bike is that it offers a balance. You can still have that sporty, connected feel when you want it, but you can also dial in the comfort for those longer rides.
So it's trying to appeal to kind of a wider range of preferences within that sport touring segment.
Exactly.
Who do you think Yamaha is targeting with this bike? Who's the ideal rider?
I think they're going for that rider who wants performance, but also versatility. Someone who might commute during the week, but then on the weekend, they want to go on a serious adventure. They don't want to be limited.
So it's for the rider who wants it all.
Pretty much, yeah.
Does that challenge those traditional boundaries between like a sport bike and a touring bike?
I think it does. And if you look at the comparisons the review makes, it becomes even more clear. So it's more technologically advanced than, say, the Kawasaki Versys 1000.
Right.
It's more affordable than that BMW F900 XR.
Right.
More touring focused than the Triumph Tiger 850 Sport. And it's definitely more road oriented than the Suzuki V-Strom 1050. So they're kind of carving out their own space.
It's like they're saying, hey, if you want one bike that can do it all, this is it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Let's go back to that engine for a second, the 890cc CP3 engine. The review really makes a point of mentioning this specific engine type. What's so special about it?
Well, the CP3 engine, it's become kind of like a signature for Yamaha's performance bikes. And
Okay.
it's not just about the numbers, the horsepower, the torque. It's the way it feels to ride. It's got this incredibly smooth power delivery, and it's got this unique sound, this triple cylinder sound that a lot of riders they love it.
So it's as much about the feel as it is about the raw power.
Exactly. It's the whole package.
Is there anything else from the review that really jumped out at you?
One thing that I think often gets overlooked in these reviews is the braking system.
Yeah, they do mention the dual front disc brakes, single rear disc, all with ABS.
Right.
But what makes the Tracer system special?
Well, it's not just about stopping power. It's about control, confidence. The review really emphasizes how responsive the brakes are, how easy they are to modulate. And that can be really crucial, in an emergency situation or even just navigating tricky roads.
Makes sense. You need to be able to control your speed, especially on a powerful bike designed for touring.
Absolutely.
So it seems like Yamaha's really thought of everything with this bike. What are your overall thoughts so far? Is it lived up to the hype?
On paper, it definitely checks all the boxes for a top-tier sport touring machine. It's got the performance, the tech, the comfort, the versatility. It could appeal to a lot of riders. But of course, the real test is going to be how it performs out there in the real world.
Right. Those real-world reviews are going to be crucial. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, just thinking about how much the motorcycle world has changed even in the last few years.
Oh, it's incredible, yeah. I mean, not that long ago, this idea of a bike that could be both a high-performance machine and comfortable for long trips, A&D have all this technology, it almost seemed impossible.
Like it was too much to ask.
Right. But bikes like this, Tracer 9 GT, are showing us, no, it can't be done.
And it seems like those traditional categories of motorcycles, they're getting kind of blurred.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, more choices for riders, more bikes that can do more things. It's a good time to be into motorcycles.
Yeah, it is exciting. But, I mean, it also makes it harder to choose a bike, right? Like, how do you even start narrowing it down with all these options?
You've got to do your research, figure out, what kind of riding do you do most, what features are must-haves, what's your budget. And that's where, deep dives like this can help, give you the information you need to make a smart decision.
That's what we're here for. Speaking of choices, The review brings up an interesting point about the future of this whole sport touring segment. Do you think, like, will bikes like the Tracer 9 GT eventually replace those more specialized motorcycles?
Mhm.
Or will there always be a demand for, a pure sport bike or a dedicated touring bike?
Hmm. Tough question. I mean, the versatility of a bike like the Tracer is undeniable, but I do think there will always be those riders who just they want that raw, focused experience, whether it's a sport bike built for the track or a big adventure touring machine made for like crossing continents.
So there's room for both.
Yeah, I think so. The market's big enough, but I also think these like do-it-all bikes, they'll keep evolving, they'll keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So it's like any technology, really. Things start out specialized, then they become more integrated, more versatile over time.
Exactly. And for motorcycle people, that's pretty exciting. More possibilities, more innovation, and ultimately just more fun riding.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 2024 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT, what's like the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's that this bike, it really represents a big step forward in what a sport touring motorcycle can be. It's got the performance, the technology, the comfort, the versatility. It's a really impressive package.
It makes you think about like the future of motorcycles and the choices riders will have.
Oh, definitely. And that's what makes exploring these new bikes so interesting. They tell us about where things are now, but they also kind of spark our imaginations about what's possible down the road.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh.
So to our listeners out there, we'll leave you with this. If you were in the market for a sport touring bike, what would matter most to you? Would it be all the tech, like on the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT,
Yeah.
or something more traditional? It's a question worth thinking about as you navigate this amazing, ever-changing world of motorcycles.
And remember, the most important thing is finding the bike that fits your riding style, your needs. That's how you'll get the most enjoyment, the most freedom out of riding.
Absolutely. Ride safe, everyone. We'll catch you on our next deep dive.